In this question, we're going to solve an actual A-level maths exam question, and we're going to use it to see what the differences are between doing maths at A-level and doing maths at GCSE. So we've got 2 points, C, which has these coordinates, and D, which has these coordinates. And a line whose equation we're given, we're told, is the perpendicular bisector of those 2 points. So at GCSE, you would do the perpendicular bisector by taking the 2 points on a picture. You put the point end of your compass at one, draw an arc, the point end of your compass at the other, draw an arc, and where those 2 arcs cross over, you would score a straight line between them, and that line would be the perpendicular bisector. So at GCSE, it's all about drawing. At A-level, like everything else at A-level maths, it's all about algebra, and the algebra we need to solve this A-level question you have actually seen at GCSE. So we've got a straight line, and the equation of that is y plus 4x equals 11. But at school, you like to make y the subject, so we'll call it y equals 11 minus 4x. And that's the perpendicular bisector of C and D. So maybe C's down here, who knows, C comma 2, and maybe D's up here, 6 comma D. And what that means is, if I was to draw a straight line between C and D, then through the midpoint, the point that's halfway between the two of them, maybe we could call that M, a line that's at 90 degrees to that original line would have equation 11 minus 4x. All of this is enough clues for us to work out what the values of C and D are. Let's take the first clue. The fact that these two lines are at 90 degrees to each other. You know from GCSE that perpendicular lines, their gradients are the negative reciprocal of each other. So if this line has gradient negative 4, then this line through C and M will have gradient positive 1 over 4, the negative reciprocal of negative 4. So the gradient of CD is positive 1 over 4. You also know from school how to work out the gradient between 2 points. It's the difference in y, the change in height, divided by the difference in x. So the difference in y, which would be d take away 2, divided by the difference in x, which would be 6 take away c, should equal a quarter. And that's an equation for us to solve. So we could cross multiply. We can multiply the 4 up. We can multiply the 6 take away c over. And we can simplify this equation to have 4d plus c equals 14. So that's an equation in C and D that we can solve by using the fact that these lines are at 90 degrees to each other. Let's take another fact. We know that the midpoint, the point halfway between these two, lies on this straight line. Let's try and work out the actual coordinates of that midpoint. Well, if the midpoint is halfway between them, then the x-coordinate of the midpoint must be halfway between c and 6. So it must be the number c add 6 divided by 2. And the y-coordinate of the midpoint must be halfway between 2 and d. So it must be the mean of 2 plus d over 2. So they're the coordinates of the midpoint. If the straight line goes through the midpoint, then when x is c add 6 over 2, if I plug that into the equation for the straight line, it should give me the y-coordinate 2 add d over 2. This point should satisfy, should work in the equation of this straight line. So that means that 2 add d over 2 should be the answer to 11 take away 4 lots of c add 6 over 2. Let's try and simplify this equation. So we could multiply everything through by 2. We can expand that bracket. And we can try and simplify it. Let's get the letters on one side. And let's subtract 2 over onto this side, minus 4. What we've ended up with is 2 simultaneous equations. We've got one equation in D and C, and we've got another equation in D and C, and we should be able to solve them simultaneously, which is another GCSE math skill. So let's try and solve them both. So we could multiply the first equation through by 4, for instance, so we'd have 4c in common. So 16d plus 4c would equal 4 lots of 14, so 56. And the second equation, 1 lot of d plus 4 lots of c equals negative 4. And then if we subtract them, top equation take away bottom equation, 16d take away 1d is 15d. 4c take away 4c is no c. 56 take away negative 4 is 60. So d must be 60 divided by 15. And if I plug that back into one of my equations, I should be able to work out what c is. So let's plug it back into this equation. So 4c plus d, which is the number 4, equals negative 4. So 4c is negative 8. So c is negative 2. Solving an A-level maths question using GCSE maths, and it's a main way that you can start to feel that A-level maths, it's very different from GCSE. You'll be asked to do things in a different way, and it's all based around algebra.